Merry Christmas, David.
Not quite, but I assume you're going to hide for the next episode, yeah?
Oh yeah, I know how crazy Christmas gets around you. I don't want to risk it.
I genuinely understand that. I tend to have bad Christmases. Last year I slaughtered orcs, and I can't recall about the one before that. But we'll see what happens.
So what do you plan on talking about today?
At this point I can only think of one thing. You like cartoons?
Oh yeah, who doesn't? Popeye the Sailor Man is one of my favorites.
Enough of culture, I see. Well, I'm working on another TTRPG based off old cartoons, both Western and Japanese. Yes, the Japanese ones are cartoons. That word you swear means something else literally means animation, like a cartoon. Yes, even CGI animations are cartoons.
Is this a hill you really want to die on?
I will, and I know I'm not the only one who will die on it too. It's annoying that people try and argue that anime and cartoons aren't the same thing, despite the fact it uses the exact same word. And I'm certain my buddy will give me a telling off due to this. I'll probably wake up to a text, honestly. But right now I'm calling the game Tune In, and I'm hoping it'll be released by Christmas. I've only got a couple of things left to fill out, including some pictures and finishing a few encounter stat blocks. The system is rather simple. Let's look into it. So there's a few categories of major abilities, but they're absolutely not important at all. Why is that? Because nothing is added into them. This game is primarily based around skills instead of ability scores. We'll go into this in a moment. But this game of my own making is a very open system. Absolutely none of it is written in stone. The system is intended with a 2d6 system, where you'll roll the dice and add them together and add in your modifiers into that. You'll be rolling against an opponent in a majority of situations, but in the rare cases it's just what the GM says is good or not. I'll be honest, I didn't put too much attempt into the system, I'll admit. But it's a simple game, so it's easy to get into and get going. So there's 4 basic categories of said skills, each with 2 written skills, but you are fully capable of making your own skills if the GM allows it. Power, speed, stretch, and noisiness. The first 2 are pretty obvious, but don't assume speed is dexterity. It's movement, essentially, and the movement abilities. Stretch is grabbing and avoiding, and noisiness is sneaking and vocalizing. Like I said, each has 2 skills written, but you should be easily able to make your own that'll work with the various abilities and attributes and items. Power has hit and block. Each one is meant to go against the other in competitive situations. Speed has run and slide. Run is meant to boost up your movement in a turn, while slide is meant to get under or over things without slowing you down. Yeah, parkour mechanics. Stretch has grab and dodge, also intended to face against each other, but one another could be placed here is ranged combat type of thing, like aim or something. And noisiness has sneak and ventriloquism. The last 2 tie very closely together. Of course, as I read over what I wrote, I realized I've yet to actually tell you how to get skills. Well, it's incredibly simple. You'll make your character with 20 points to spread across the skills. No skill can be put over 8. You could have only 2 in everything, should you want to, but you could also hyper-focus a couple of things and play up the flaws, which I recommend doing that. It's always fun to do that. Now, that's just step 1. You'll get abilities, 2 of them, in the basic category. Each ability has certain keywords, which puts them into certain thematics of games. Of course, some keywords also add certain abilities. Certain keywords used in things are like cutting, which leads into bleeding, bludgeoning, which leads into broken, and piercing, which leads into puncture. Bleeding is caused by critical hits and causes tests in the speed category to take a -1. Broken is similar, but it leads to a change to power. And punctured is the same, but for the stretch skills. But how do you get critical hits? Well, that's easy. When you roll your 2d6, you will add the numbers together. If the total of those two dice adds up to 10 or more before you add the bonuses, each weapon will give a critical effect, which I mentioned what they do. Of course, I had to fill out these pages with things, so there's a bunch of junk you can just skip with this book. Episodes being your sessions, scenes being your encounters, scene points are what you gain through the game to get new abilities through it all. All your enemies or situations will give 1 scene point. If you're fighting 5 dudes and take them all out, you'll gain 5 scene points. Now, will that be 5 points for each player, or do you and your friends need to divide those 5 points among yourselves? Well, that depends on the GM, which I call the director. Fast games, everyone gains the 5 points. Slow games, divide them among everyone. Of course, you also get that thing that your character is known for. Each cartoon character gets a signature weapon, and there's a few options of them. Rifle, hammer, sword, card, spear, and rock. Each one has different positives and negatives. In fact, if someone else were to take your weapon, there's a drawback to it, which will lead to some of those keywords coming in, including some new ones. Blast, heavy, broken, boomerang, limp, and drop are the ones I have so far. Essentially, these are more of flavor things than actual mechanics, funny things that happen in this funny cartoonish game. But we'll need to talk about how the game works actually. There's 4 steps to every round of a situation: turn order, movement, action, and resolve. At the start of each round, you'll roll a run skill, or whatever is closest really, and argue as to who's going first in that round. Some abilities might give boosts, some might want to go last. You and your friends can throw hands about it. Next is movement. You move 6 spaces, whether it's a hex or a grid. You must move flat side to flat side when making movements, making diagonals actually a circle. If you want to sprint, you can roll a run skill and move that many skill squares or hexes. Actions are pretty simple. Do a thing, roll for it, done. And resolve is pretty basic. You resolve everything you did, as some things will cause other effects. Like I said, I'm hoping this game will be available on Christmas. Will it be? I genuinely doubt it, but I'm hoping so. I'm intended on it costing only a single US dollar, as it's surprisingly hefty PDF, right now at least. Not a big one, but it's more than I originally thought it would be. In my original plans for what images to put into the comics, I found out Popeye the Sailor Man is not yet in public domain like I originally thought it was. Hell, I started writing this whole thing as soon as Steamboat Willie entered public domain. But I'm only like a week and change away from it as of recording this, so... Darren, you best hide. It's almost Christmas and shove off.